All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, professional grade calls for every hunter. And today we are welcoming back Kirk Douglas with Mustang Ridge Guide Service. Kirk, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
And today we're going to
Thanks for
talk.
having me.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. I wouldn't mind having you on every week. It don't matter. Just talking hunting. But today we're going to talk mule deer and antelope. And Kirk's, guided mule deer and hunted mule deer, and the same with antelope. So we're going to kick it off with some mule deer.
Kirk, how many years have you been hunting mule deer?
Geez. Well, I guess if you account for if we're talking, blacktail, um, let's see, for I'd say going got to be coming up on 20 years where I've kind of, that's kind of been the primary species of deer that I hunt. I prefer mule deer hunting over whitetail hunting. Um, I like the deer. Um, I think it's because I grew up back east and we could only hunt whitetails, and I would look at magazines and I'd see these shows on TV where these guys are out west hunting mule deer and antelope and elk, and it was always kind of something like, man, I'd really like to do that someday. And then once I got out west, it's like, yeah, you can have all the whitetails you want. I'll chase the mule deer.
Well, let me ask you, growing up back east, we grew up in the west, so we hunted blacktail. Primarily, they're a little smaller here. The racks,
Yeah.
you can get some big ones. I know you've shot a nice, couple whopper 4 points, but we grew up looking at magazines with whitetails and going, man, we want to get one of those. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, it's complete
for what you don't-
opposite. Yeah, because
Yeah,
our
Yeah.
whitetail aren't very big.
yeah.
I mean, you can get some big ones, but I mean, they're not like what you see in Wisconsin or even Michigan. I mean, some
Well,
Michigan
and a lot of the
whitetails are
whitetail
huge.
where I grew up, the problem down where I grew up was if it had an antler coming out of its head, it was getting shot.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so the deer never really met their potential. And my actually one of my uncles, um, he's a guy that really that I used to really look up to as far as hunting goes, because he had some private property that he hunted, and he let the deer grow up before he shot them. And he's killed some big deer over the years, and he used to travel from, back in southeast Georgia. He'd go to Montana and hunt elk, and um so that was kind of I was always kind of fascinated with that. And most of my um most of my family, if it was a legal deer, it was getting shot, and he just had a little different approach, which I kind of preferred. um
We
but
grew up with
I
the
didn't
same
make the
rules.
rules.
Yeah, right? We grew up with the same set of rules, except for over here we
Yeah.
have, it's pretty much any deer for archery.
Yeah.
So, antlers, no antlers. If it was brown, it was down. That was our credo.
Right.
And even if, we took a couple immature does too. So that being said, always had like a special draw towards mule deer myself. Seen them on TV, seen them in magazines, and they're kind of like almost like a dinosaur type mythology around it. It was
Well,
one of those weird things.
if you think about iconic deer as far as Western hunting goes, you don't think about whitetails, in my opinion.
No. Yeah, and I
You think
totally
about
agree with that.
big, nasty, 200 to 300 pound mule deer bucks that look like bull elk. Sometimes they're so big.
Mm-hmm.
There's big whitetails in Montana and Wyoming and so on and so forth, but it doesn't. I don't know. They don't get me fired up the way a big mule deer does.
Now, are you you're doing a spot and stock, or are you hunting tree stands? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it's there are some guys that use tree stand and blind type tactics, for the coos deer down here. But for and most of the hunting I do personally, and most of the hunters that I guide are archery hunters. Um, and we're hunting mule deer, and we're spot and stalk, or spot and spook, depending on because the rut, and the rut's going on down here. It's a great time to kill a big buck because they get kind of stupid, but at the same time, if he's got 10 does with him, that's 20 eyeballs you got to try to weave your way through to get close enough to get a good shot at him. So it's I think a lot of people, you watch these guys on TV, and I watch hunting shows on TV. And you see these guys, these shooting these big mule deer with their rifles, and it's like, what a stupid deer, just stood there and let the guy shoot him. But I will say that killing a big desert mule deer, it's not what people. I think there's some people down here like, oh yeah, no problem, go kill a mule deer. You find a big mature desert mule deer and kill them with your bow, and you've done something.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So you guys,
Yeah.
your rut, I know ours is like mid-November to early December. What is your guys' rut in Arizona?
So the rut in southern Arizona and southern New Mexico, and even some parts of northern New Mexico, and down in Sonora, Mexico, it's kind of, for the mule deer, it's kind of last week of the December, you start to see things kind of picking up, and into kind of the first 2 weeks of January. The first week of January historically is really good. And then the Coues deer rut starts a little bit later. But the last couple of seasons, it seems like the rut's gotten, kind of at its peak and gotten better a little later, like January 8th to 10th, where sometimes, it's like the first or second that it's really good.
So I picked a perfect time to come down then, right? Because I think I'm leaving the 6th.
Yeah. If somebody says, hey, when do I come down? It's definitely January versus December, and that's from my experience of traveling down here myself before I lived down here, and then just having lived down here for the past 5 years, and kind of, keeping some mental notes. I would definitely say January is a better time down here. In northern Arizona, the rut's at the same time as it is every place else, November. And there's an archery draw hunt up there in August on the Kaibab, which is the north rim of the Grand Canyon. That's a pretty cool hunt. I've done that one a couple times now, and that was a lot of fun.
Bet you saw some pretty good scenery up there.
Oh yeah, scenery and a lot of big deer too. There are a lot of big deer up there.
Get a big buck down, have a epic photo.
Yeah, I was only up there. I was just helping buddies and just up there for a few days at a time, and we didn't kill a deer, but there are definitely, or not at least when I was there, but the deer up there are impressive for sure.
So if you had, a northern hunter, and you went through your regular season, you ended it, got out of the rut, you can come down there and hunt mule deer in the first part of January, all the way through January. Yep. What's the season like?
So it depends on the unit down here. The various units have different. The season varies in length depending on the unit. The unit that I prefer to hunt is open typically the first 13 to 14 days of January. There are other units that are open the entire month of January. And it also varies from unit to unit as to whether or not it's any antler deer versus, mule deer only versus whitetail only.
Oh, okay. So what other species do you guys have besides mule deer and those any antler deer season spots?
As far as deer goes, you've got so here's the advantage of coming in January. So let's say you buy an over-the-counter archery deer tag and you come and hunt for, let's say, a week in January, and you don't kill a deer. You can come back with that over-the-counter archery tag and hunt again in late August or early September. And you can also come back in December and hunt that tag again if you don't get something when you come back for that what we call our early deer hunt.
So that tag is good for the whole year because you're buying it at the beginning of the year. You get the benefit of the extra seasons that come throughout the year.
Correct. And if you get to a point where you haven't taken a deer with your bow and it's time to apply for a rifle tag, you can still apply for that rifle tag. And if you draw a rifle tag, at that point you got 2 tags in your pocket, right? You've got the over-the-counter archery deer tag and you've got a rifle tag. Now, once you kill one deer, it's a 1 deer limit in Arizona. So whether you kill that deer with your rifle or your bow, once you've taken a deer, you're finished. But buying that over-the-counter archery deer tag and hunting in January opens up more opportunities throughout the year for you.
Nice. That's good to know. So the rifle tag's draw only.
Correct.
But
to answer your question, well, not every archery deer hunt is over the counter. The majority of them are. There are a few that are draw, like that deer hunt that I talked about up on the Kaibab.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're, there's also, so there's 2 different areas up there. There's the Kaibab, which is Unit 12. That is the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Then north of that is what's called the Strip, and those are the Unit 13s. So the biggest difference from what I've seen, besides, one's a little further north than the other as far as the deer goes, is you will see more deer on the Kaibab hunt, but you will see bigger deer on the Strip hunt.
I gotcha. Is the weather that much worse in the Strip hunt than the Kaibab, or those deer?
No. It's you're up there in August. That's an August hunt with your bow. Kind of end of August, last part of August anyway. I can't think of the dates right off the top of my head, but it's nice and warm during the day and it cools off at night. It's and the weather. I mean, August down here in August, it's September, early September. There's always a chance you're going to get thunderstorms rolling in and things like that. But
get a haboob. Have you had any haboobs yet? Out hunting?
So yeah, I mean they happen, but I haven't been in the midst
you're
of
over here laughing.
I don't
know what it is?
I'm just wondering if you pronounced it right.
No, it is. It's a sandstorm, and then it rains on top of it.
Oh, I wasn't thinking something totally different.
Nah, it's
so
messed up.
I haven't. I've seen photos and I've seen videos, but I haven't been caught up in one myself. And I can't say that I'm particularly interested in getting caught up in one of those.
I was just wondering if no, I wouldn't either. I've been on the road and got nailed by it, and I'm hearing on the radio,
Yeah.
I hope you're not in this haboob and blah blah blah. I'm like, what the hell is a haboob?
You said that.
Yeah, I did.
Is it a haboob or is it a habib? I think it's a haboob.
Yeah, it's haboob, and I didn't know what it was when I moved down here either. I had to look it up. I was like, oh, what is haboob? What is that?
Yeah,
so,
like what the hell?
But yeah, I haven't experienced that.
Well, good.
With any luck, I won't.
Yeah, no, it's nasty.
So a haboob is caused by a high pressure storm system that moves through an area, pulls air from beneath and pushes air out in either direction. When you said it's a sandstorm that followed with rain, I just got this picture of Rambo in First Blood, like decked out in mud. See these hunters coming out, they're just drenched.
Would too.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because you remember where he's from, right?
Washington, right?
No.
Bowie, Arizona.
Oh yeah, originally, yeah. The first movie was in Washington. Yeah. Got it.
So you're right. So I was driving. The first time I headed into New Mexico, I'm driving along, and I think my wife was with me, and I saw the sign, the exit on the freeway for Bowie, Arizona, and I slammed on my brakes, pulled over, took a picture of myself with the Bowie, Arizona sign behind me, and she's like, "What in the hell are you doing?"
This is
like, what are you talking about? John Rambo grew up here.
Yeah. So this is when you just moved down there like 5 years ago?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's a pretty awesome. Epic photo.
So you tell me you took a selfie with the Dewey, Arizona sign?
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
You gotta send that to me. I hope you still have it somewhere.
I have to look at my phone.
You have to look back 5 years, 10,000 pictures ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I know what's in here. That's awesome. So, with the Haboob conversation past us, funny these little tangents you get on. What's your favorite thing about mule deer hunting up that high country up there?
Well, I'll be honest. I prefer to hunt them down here in the desert. I like the style of hunting. You find a high point, you hike up there, you sit down, you glass. I really like glassing. I like that aspect of it, not just kind of walking along and hoping to spook a deer that you can get a shot at. You glass up a buck, you come up with a plan, and you do your best to execute it. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, you go back and reboot and give it hell again.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too, is spotting them and figuring out your plan.
Now, when you're hunting them in the desert, is it more like rolling hills, or like what kind of describe the terrain?
Well, so I think people are, if you've never been down here, people are kind of surprised. There's some there's straight up, mountains, and hills just as big and just as gnarly and tough to hunt as there are up there where you guys still live. The difference is once you get to the top of the hill, you can actually see things.
Yeah, definitely.
When you're looking down. So, but the terrain is, even in January, it's dry. The weather can take some pretty drastic swings at times. As far as the temperature goes, and we'll get some occasional snow. But the terrain is it's rolling hills, and it's hills that you got to put a little effort into getting on top of. It's definitely not some. I think a lot of people think it's just flat desert out here, and in the bottoms it is, but it's rolling hills, and you use that terrain to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. You can use those different cuts and try to close the distance more. And
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited.
Is there a lot more sage mixed in there? Is it cactus? What are you looking at as far as the undergrowth or foliage down there?
Well, there's big tall grasses. There's a lot of cactus, a lot of prickly pear, a lot of barrel cactus, a lot of cholla cactus, a lot of mesquite, a lot of palo verdes. It can be kind of deceiving, to be perfectly honest with you, when you're up on top of up on a point glassing, and you're looking down, and a person thinking, oh, man, this this is wide open, and then you get down there and it's like, man, this is a little thicker than I thought it was going to be. So depending on where you're hunting, that can kind of vary. But there's plenty of terrain and plenty of brush that can be your biggest partner or your biggest enemy, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about people getting lost in mesquite thickets. You heard about that?
Well, I will tell you, if I ever thought I would lost, I would just turn around and walk out the way I walked in. So I don't know how the hell a person could get lost in a mesquite thicket. But I mean, I suppose it could happen. I do. The reason I mentioned, I will tell you this, and this is from experience. If a guy's planning on coming down here to hunt, there's, because of the style of hunting, there's a lot of walking, right? There's a lot of hiking, and it's January. It's not too hot, and I had a guy, not this year, not this past season, but the season before, and I told him, on the first day, I'm like, hey, you got to be drinking, man.
Yeah, you
got to stay
hydrate.
hydrated.
Yeah.
And he quite frankly, didn't do a very good job of that. And about halfway through the second day, he crumped. And I actually had to take him back to the hotel that him and his wife were staying at, because he just couldn't go on. That's why I mentioned, it's still dry in January, because you got to come knowing that, I got to stay well hydrated. And that's a really important part for anybody that might be considering coming down here.
Yeah, that's a good key. Yeah, you gotta definitely watch your water intake, and yeah, make sure you have water. Number one.
Yeah.
Do you mix in anything like electrolyte powders or salt tablets or anything? Recommend anything like that, or just water?
I don't do it. I don't do it. I just drink water. I mean, I think there are plenty of people that probably do. I carry a little packet with some electrolytes and stuff in it if I need it. But I think it's been in my pack for about 3-4 years now, and I've never even opened it.
Just in case.
Yeah. And I usually have I usually actually usually take a soda with me, for a couple of reasons. Number one, you get some of that salt that you need through there. You get some sugar, and you get that caffeine. So I'll usually have a soda in my pack and drink it about halfway through the day with lunch or something like that.
Something I wanted to touch base on what you said about spotting. What kind of glass are you using down there?
Well, I use the only kind of glass that anybody should ever use.
There it comes.
And it's green and it's got a silver eagle on it.
Asco.
Yeah. Austrian or what is it? I don't know if it's Austrian or I don't know where Swarovski is based out of, to be perfectly honest with you. But I use the Swarovski optics. I have I've tried. I'll tell you, since I moved down here. So let me start at the beginning. So the first time I came down here, I rolled in with my Washington State Lupo 10x42s.
Perfect.
And I had went and bought this Vortex tripod, and I on the first day discovered that I was ill-equipped for hunting in Arizona with my 10s and my flimsy ass tripod. So I've since upgraded that. When I moved down here, I think the first really good pair of binos I bought was a pair of Vortex razors, and I still have them. In fact, my wife uses them and my boys use them. And I'll be honest, for the money, they're pretty hard to beat. I got them in 10x50, and then I kind of started, messing around and looking, kind of comparing what I had to what other people I was hunting with had, and that's Zeiss and Leica and Swaro, and by this time 6 Hour had started making optics, and loopholes and all this stuff, and I just couldn't. I couldn't find anything better than when I looked through the Swaros, and in the middle of the day, you can't see. There's not much of a difference between the Vortex and the Swarovskis, but first thing in the morning and at last light, that's where you see the difference.
Picks up a lot of light.
Yeah. So for a while, I had a set of 10x42 SLCs that I wore on my chest, and I had a set of 15x56 in my pack. And if I'm just hiking around, obviously I'm using the 10s, but when I sit down to glass, I'd bust out the 15s. And then I had a Vortex spotter, and then Swarovski comes out with this BTX. And
ATX, you said?
The BTX.
Okay.
So the BTX is if you don't know what it is, it's a spotting scope with a binocular eyepiece. So instead of closing one eye, and trying to look. So
I've seen those, and that's supposed to help with your eye relief and all this other stuff. So you're not just squinting with one eye and trying to use it.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And the biggest mistake I ever made was looking through one of them. So
that's what happens. They hook, line, and sinker.
Right. So I had been kind of toying around with the idea of my setup, and what I decided to do is get myself a set of 12x50 Swarovski ELs. So I found a guy on Rockslide that fortunately lives here in Tucson, and we did a straight across the board swap. I gave him my 10s and 15s for his 12 by 50s. And then I had done some horse trading with some other things that I had, and ended up with the 85 millimeter BTX.
Attaboy.
So I had those 12s that I can, use on the tripod, or I can keep them on my chest. It's kind of a nice little balance between going back and forth between the 10s and the 15s. And the BTX is really, for long distance stuff. Or we used it on a sheep hunt last December and was able to kind of get a close look at a ram, and the hunter decided he was going to go shoot him, and he went and shot him. I don't think I don't use the BTX nearly as much as I use my 12 by 50s, but there are definitely some moments where it's come in handy.
So I have a limited experience with spotting scopes, and I had a straight eyepiece, and then I had an angular eyepiece. I ended up doing some horse trading as well, and ended up with a Swarovski ATS-80 with an angle eyepiece, and I had to get rid of that straight eyepiece. The angle to me, when I'm spotting downhill, it's not a big problem with the straight eyepiece, but uphill, now that was a difference maker. Being able to look down instead of setting the tripod up too high or finding a comfortable spot to sit. How are those BTXs set up? Because I'm picturing like straight eyepiece, but I'm also thinking they could have an angled option.
No, it's actually angled. So it's more like an angled spotter where you're looking down into it.
Okay.
The cool thing about it is there's a little aiming device on it, so you can kind of use this aiming device to get on your spot or close to it anyway. And that way, when you look into the eyepiece, you're on or close to your spot. Otherwise, you're kind of painting all around trying to find what you're looking for.
Yeah. So that little eyepiece, I guess the aiming piece is on the outside of the binocular.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's cool. What's the most interesting spot you've ever made with your spotting scopes?
Can
I give you an example?
Probably. Yeah.
So I was spotting one time and just looking under some fir boughs, and I saw this flick I thought was a squirrel, like a squirrel tail. And I'm looking at it, and it wouldn't happen again. And about 4 or 5 minutes later, it flicked again. And then I realized I was looking at a deer's eyeball, and his tail was flicking over its back. So I had to like recalibrate what I was looking at. But I was looking directly at a deer's muzzle underneath a tree, set back about 2 trees in the shade, and his tail was flicking every now and then. That's the only way I spotted. Otherwise, I was looking at his nose and his eyeball, didn't even know what I was seeing a deer there.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I tell people when they come down here and they're not used to the terrain and the glassing and all this stuff. And, I'm picking out deer left and right. And these guys that are coming home with me from the East Coast are like, how in the hell did you see that deer? And I always say the same thing. What are you looking for? Yeah. And they all say the same thing. They all say, I'm looking for a deer. I'm like, okay, that's your mistake. You're not looking for a deer. You're looking for a part of a deer.
Yeah.
Tail
flick, you're looking for an antler. Move. Yeah. Antler.
Right. Yep. But I think, so hunting in southern Arizona, especially down by the border, I think some of the more interesting things I've seen with my spotter from afar are guys climbing over the border fence. That was a good one. I don't know if they got apprehended or not, but I think I spotted what's called a Cudamundi, which we have down here. They're kind of
is that like the raccoon?
Well, it's kind of
like
if you look at it,
red
it's
panda.
Kind of so it kind of reminds me of a cross between like a raccoon and a monkey. We call them desert monkeys. And I remember that was the first one I saw, so it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen one of those yet. So.
Yeah, the Cudamundi, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a whole bunch of those in Arizona, not Arizona, down in Mexico. We were down in the Yucatan, staying at this resort, and I come out of the room and there's like this monkey raccoon. It's like sitting there, I'm like, what is this guy doing? And there's probably 4 or 5 of them. Their tails kind of stick up. There's actually a video of online. Someone played a bunch of them crossing the road in reverse, and they looked like brontosauruses. You know, the long neck dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was like, what the heck is that? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. The Cootamundis are cool if you've never seen them. They're kind of
they're cool looking.
Got like a monkey long tail and
Yep.
a raccoon face, and they're pretty skinny and they stand up kind of like a dog, almost stand like a dog. They're not real low to the earth.
Yeah, is that a bull back there screaming?
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, he's got the hunting show in the background, and the volume's been low, but you know, when they started tooting on that bugle, it kicked up a bit.
I'm surprised he actually heard that through the microphone because it was not that loud.
Yeah, man.
Well, there you go.
I hear that sound in my sleep every night.
We all do.
They're going off up here, man. It's what is it? April. Ready for the rut. You know, it's pre-rut right now.
Yeah.
Got to keep it interesting.
All right, Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to get into some questions here before we dive into some antelope talk. Here we go. We have a question right here. This is actually from Rob. One of Dave and I, we know Rob. What are some over-the-counter or DIY hunts in Arizona in between the months of January and March?
So over the counter, you got the archery deer tags. There are some archery javelina tags that are available over the counter as well. That's pretty much it. Unless you just want to come down and shoot coyotes or prairie dogs.
So small game, javelina, mule deer, and
yep.
So on that, so that deer, the Coues deer, can you hunt that on the deer tag as well, or is that special draw?
In certain units, you can hunt Coues deer with that over-the-counter archery tag.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
I actually did not know that. I thought it was a draw only. So that's
and there cool. are a fair number of units, which is any antler deer. So if you're out there with the idea that I want to find a mule deer and you stumble across a good whitetail and you want to shoot them, you can shoot them.
Awesome. We have some more listener questions.
Yeah, we definitely do. Here's an antelope one, since we're going to be talking antelope next. What makes an antelope hard to hunt?
Not much.
Nice. I love that answer. That's a good answer.
I mean, yeah. Well, so to me, there's nothing particularly difficult about antelope hunting. It's the reason I like to hunt. I generally do an archery hunt, and I apply for antelope tags here in Arizona, but I got a better chance of winning the lottery than drawing that thing. And I've done some antelope hunting over in New Mexico as well, but generally I do an archery antelope hunt in Montana every year. And the fun, the reason I like it is because there's a lot of action. It's like stalk after stalk after stalk until you're able to get it done. But I don't think, other than dealing with the heat in August in eastern Montana, I don't think they're like difficult animals to hunt, really. I mean, anything you kill with your bow, you're doing something right, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But antelope, to me, if you watch them interact with one another, the bucks are they're kind of arrogant, right? So if you compare them to the way deer behave, and even to the way bull elk behave, the antelope bucks are kind of arrogant. They're like looking at you like, you think you're going to come over here and shoot me? Like, that's not going to happen. And they're very curious too. So I feel like a combination of their sort of arrogance and their curiosity is what gets them killed. That curiosity, and I think their sort of their arrogance, if you will, kind of allows it makes their comfort zone a little tighter than the comfort zone of a deer or an elk.
Yeah, and they're so fast too, so they probably think their
Right.
speeds benefit.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I don't think I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm some great white hunter because I've been lucky enough to kill an antelope every year. It was just it's just persistence and time spent in the field.
Yeah, doing your
Just like, I
homework.
mean, you can say that about anything you're hunting. But I don't consider it like if you're it's not as tough as hunting deer in my opinion. So I think the answer to that is the biggest issue that I've run into on my antelope hunts is just dealing with the summer heat. Regardless of where you're hunting them.
Yeah. Do you did you find like the first time you went antelope hunting, did you get an antelope, or was it like you
I
had to
did.
learn? You had to, oh, did you? Okay, so the learning curve
Yeah.
for you was pretty quick. You put all your other skills together, and
so the very first antelope hunt I went on, we I actually killed one on opening day, like like 9 o'clock in the morning, and we had spotted a big group of them, and we snuck in there, and they were in an alfalfa field that had been cut, and they were just some of them were laying down, some of them were up grazing, and when we got over there, they were in a big huddle group, kind of running around in this field, and we kind of like, what the hell's going on here, and we saw some movement coming from our right, and there were some coyotes that were working their way in toward these antelope, and those buck, just like a deer, those antelope went and ran those coyotes off.
oh, okay.
And then they looked back at us, and I honestly think they thought we were coyotes.
Oh, so you were down, and
so we had the wind in our favor, and we had the sun at our back. So they're looking through 10 power eyes. Their eyeballs are like 10 to 12 power binoculars. So they're staring into the sun. All they see are these shapes, and they can't smell us. So they were at about 70 yards when they first started kind of looking in our direction, and they kind of started kind of walking our way. And then there were probably 3 really good bucks in this bunch, and one of them, he comes around to the front and takes off in a dead sprint at us and turns broadside at like 33 yards. I'm like, duh, that was a mistake.
That is awesome.
And I shot him, and he I'll tell you, he toted it a hell of a lot further than I thought he would. I made a good shot, and he toted it a pretty good ways. But I've been really lucky, man. I think I've been hunting over there like 10 or 11 times out of the last 13 years, and I've killed a buck every time I've been over there.
that's all DIY, over the counter tag.
So those tags are not over the counter. You have to draw them. And I know a guy over there that's got some property that I hunt. His son is kind of starting to take care of the property and things like that. So they are starting to sell antelope hunts over there too. But yeah, it's a draw tag. But if you apply for an archery antelope tag in Montana, and you've got a very good chance of drawing it. And there's a lot of block management land. You can get a list of all that stuff where people open up their property for antelope hunters. So there's plenty of opportunity, for sure, to hunt bucks over there. And Wyoming's another good option. There's more antelope in Wyoming than people, but I just prefer that Montana hunt. I enjoy it.
What kind of expense is there involved in that as far as licensing goes?
When you apply for that archery antelope tag in Montana, if you buy a preference points to try to improve your draw odds, by the time you get it all paid for, it's like, I want to say it's around $260.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all.
We're past that point though, right? So we're gonna have to wait for next year to try to put in.
No, you got until I believe it's June 1st. You have it's either May or June 1st. I'd have to look.
Okay, yeah,
Oh,
well,
May 1st is like, what, next week?
yeah, 5 days or something like that.
I think the deadline is June 1st, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look at it.
Do you know of any over-the-counter antelope tags?
No.
None. So you have to have
No,
some type of point to draw.
I don't know of any over-the-counter antelope tag. I don't, maybe somebody else might know something about that, but I certainly, I don't have any experience with that. Now, what we do have in New Mexico are landowner tags, that are sold. But then you get into, paying somebody for access and so on and so forth. So
Now, is that what Dave and I were going to do with you last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that's something that, is a good option for folks that don't want to draw and, or, have some money to burn and they want to spend it on a hunt. There's some, landowner permits that are available in New Mexico at various places throughout the state.
Are you guiding for antelopes?
No. So I had a deal set up with some outfitters over there last year and kind of got the rug pulled out from under me on that deal. So that little partnership fell apart, and I don't have any antelope hunts lined up this year. The outfitter I work with in New Mexico, he was going to look into trying to get his hand on some landowner tags, but he just had a lot of stuff going on, and he does a lot of lion and bear hunting with hounds, and it just never materialized. But it's something that I hope in the future that he and I can work together and try to find a landowner over there with some antelope tags he wants to sell, and we can guide some hunts out there for him through his outfitting business.
Yeah, I've heard that lion and bear hunting with dogs is quite the commitment.
Yeah, it's not something, I've done it a couple of times, and the the investment that those guys make in the dogs and taking care of them and everything is unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw a guy one time down here by Mount Adams. He was part of a management, something to do with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, but years ago they stopped hound hunting in Washington State, and so they have basically contracted with hound hunters to do these special hunts if they have issues. And this guy had, I think, 5 or 6 dogs down in the canyon, and he's like, "They're down there," and I was like, "Oh God, dude, how are you gonna get them?" He's like, "Well, I got this backpack right here. I'm heading down." I was looking down like, "Man, that is nuts." He's like, "I'm gonna wrestle all 5 of these dogs back up this hill." Dang. Yeah, I've heard stories of dogs being 10, 12 feet up in the tree on the branches, and
Oh yeah,
they get full of fire.
Oh yeah, that's what they're born and bred to do, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that Arizona, I guess you guys have a lot of mountain lions down there too. So.
Yep, there are. That's another thing that I always tell people when they come down to hunt with me during the deer season. Buy an over-the-counter mountain lion tag too, because if you don't have one, we're going to see one, especially for the rifle hunters.
Now that how long is that season? Is that going from January to the end of the year, or is it 5-6 months?
So lion tags are pretty much they're good year round. The guys that hunt them with hounds, they have there's 3 months, I want to say 2 or 3 months where they can't run lions or with hounds. But yeah, the lion season. So I buy a tag every year. It's $15 and I just keep it on me. And but yeah, it's any time of the year. Any time of the year that you would be hunting deer or elk, you're good to shoot a mountain lion if you glass one up.
Yeah, that's what we do here. We pick the combo tag because the one time you don't have it, man, it's bound to happen. You're gonna run right into something.
Right.
You're like, dang, I never see mountain lions, and I don't have a tag, and there's one right there, 10 yards away, broadside, looking at me.
Yeah.
Every time. So get that over the counter opportunity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we got javelina, mule deer, coos deer, mountain lions.
Yep.
over the counter, and the season is basically 12 months. There's a short break in there with mountain lions and the regular season for deers, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity down in Arizona for sure.
Yeah, I love it down here, man. There's been some kind of sketchy, recent sketchy game and fish rules that have come down the pike, but as far as opportunity and just the experience, I really like it down here. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting down there with you and take on some of these hunts you're talking about. Probably a mule deer to start it off, and I'll have a cougar tag in my pocket just in case.
Yep.
Yeah.
That and a javelina tag.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, right. So the javelina, that's a small game tag that you have to get for that, or?
No, it's a big game tag.
And it's
if you guys were gonna if you guys were gonna just hunt over the counter deer, then there are some units where you can get in certain units where you'll have opportunity for both deer and javelina.
Okay, so that javelina has a specific tag like you would get for deer. It's not part of the
license. It's not like statewide. Yeah, it's just for specific units.
Okay, a little different than here, but yeah, that's awesome.
Good to know, though.
Yeah,
good to know, because then that'll help you pick out the unit that you want to be in, or at least close by. So that way
yeah, awesome. Well, I know we got some time restraints today.
So. Yeah, Kirk, how are you on time?
I'm good.
You're good? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Got a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind. So when glassing up an antelope, what makes a shooter buck a shooter? So are you looking like how far the antlers are past its ears, hooks? What are you looking for in an antelope buck that makes an antelope a shooter buck?
So I think it depends on whether or not you're one of those guys that want to be famous and have your name in a book, or which, by the way, you have to pay to have your name put in the book, and then you have to buy the book for $400. So I never really understood why anybody would want to do that. So
that sounds ridiculous.
I can when I look at it, I can tell you right away whether it's a deer, an antelope, or an elk, whether I want to shoot it, right? And I have sort of a criteria what I'm looking for. And when it comes to antelope, so what I'm looking for, I'm not sitting there going, okay, this buck is going to be about, but he's going to be about an 80-inch buck. That's not what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm looking for is, do the prongs on his horns, where they come off the front of his horn, is that prong where it comes off, is it above his ear? If it's above the tip of his ear or even with it, I'm going after that buck.
Okay, and you're talking about the front-facing prong, because it does have you're not talking about the one that swoops back.
Correct.
Okay, just to make that
That's
clear.
Correct. I'm looking at the prong that comes off the front of his horn, and if that is even with or above the tip of his ear, I'm going after him.
That's a shooter. Okay.
That's a mature buck, especially if you're archery hunting them. Now, if you're rifle hunting them, maybe you're going to be a little more picky. I don't know. I've shot one antelope with my rifle and 11 with my bow. So, and the antelope I shot with my rifle, he was good enough for me. His prongs were just right even with the tips of his ears, and it was a good long shot, which is what I wanted. And I made a good shot, and then we ate him.
Sounds like a good day.
Are all the antelope you're hunting, they're over alfalfa?
No. Just kind of various. I mean, I've killed a couple on cut alfalfa fields in Montana, but most of them is just spotting and stalking, not necessarily. I've never shot an antelope on a water hole out of a blind or anything like that. It's always been spot and stalk, and hasn't always been on while they were eating. Sometimes you're just sneaking up on them when they're out just cruising around.
Now, have you noticed a big flavor difference between the Montana antelope and the Arizona antelope, or New
No,
Mexico?
not really. Not really. I haven't noticed much of a difference. I think antelope meat is very underrated. I think a lot of people, have a preconceived notion, or maybe they killed one at the wrong time of the year. But antelope meat, I love it, and everybody who lives in my house loves it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he did a couple trips to Wyoming, and he brought back I would say a bunch of antelope meat, but they're kind of small. But he brought back,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of antelope hamburgers and steaks and stuff, and it was delicious. Breakfast sausage, hot links. Yeah, man, it was great. So I haven't had a
Yeah,
bad
it's good
experience with it
stuff.
yet, and the flavor, it's a rich flavor to me. It has that good flavor already. Excuse me, naturally in the meat.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's
Hopefully,
good stuff.
hopefully here soon, I'm able to line up a hunt and go after that. So Kirk, if you do end up lining up with an outfitter or something, let me know. I want to be like
Oh
one of
yeah,
your first customers for an
yeah,
antelope
definitely.
hunt. I've been wanting to hunt antelope for a long time. It's just I'm clueless on what to do. So if anybody out there doesn't
Sure.
know like what to do for an antelope hunt, I'm right there with you. I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah, pull back and
Well,
shoot when they're in 30-yard range for sure.
No, getting to that point.
Yeah,
I can hunt.
I'm
But
thinking coyote decoy. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, get the coyote decoy, set it out there right by them.
The hunting part's
Oh,
not the problem. It's getting the tag and knowing what to do, like what to do.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I've never hunted out of the state of Washington, so if it's not over the counter,
Have you ever heard of anybody using a coyote decoy yet?
No, not for antelope. No, but decoying them with the Montana decoys, or other decoys that are out there for antelope, is a very effective strategy to kill them. That's for sure.
Now, are those the kind that have you seen people use those kinds attached to their bow and they like have a shoot through window?
I haven't seen it personally. I know there's a lot of guys that they use them for antelope and turkey and deer and things like that. I actually have one for deer, and I threw it on my bow and I kind of played around with it, and I didn't like it, because there's just
doesn't it?
so much of your peripheral vision
Yeah, I was
that
gonna
gets
say, doesn't it
blocked
take
by
out
the.
your field of view? Like you're only looking through like
Yeah,
this tiny
I
window.
don't know. I like I said, I tried it, and I couldn't get used to it. And like, nah, I'll take my chances doing it the old fashioned way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I've never hunted with a decoy myself. I just hearing that coyote incident, gets the wheels turning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty funny strategy. Just go out there like
Yeah.
with a little coyote thing. That'd be funny.
Hmm.
Oh, they ran right for me.
Be the first one to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Booger up a hunt real fast.
Don't do that twice.
60. So you get 60% of the time. It works every time.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you, Kirk, and this kind of goes to
Okay.
the lines of like what I was just saying. So when you start planning for an out of the state hunt, like where do you start, and what are your first steps? And I know this is kind of like a huge loaded question, but let's just stick to antelope, because obviously, you don't know of any over the counter tags, and neither I know of no tags really. All I know is that you need points and you need to put them out of the state of Washington because we can't hunt them here.
Yeah.
So let's just say, for instance, antelope. Where do you start, and what would be your first step? So obviously you got to narrow down a state. That's easy.
Right.
But then what?
Well, so excuse me. I think the very first thing you do is you come up with a budget, right? Because that's going to dictate everything else. So depending on your budget, if you want a sure thing, and you don't want to deal with, worrying about points and applications and so on and so forth, then you look at one of these landowner tag hunts in New Mexico. it's a very simple process. You apply for a tag, but you're not really applying for the tag. You're essentially just letting them know, like, hey, you're buying the tag. You're not applying for it. You go through the same process as if you were applying for a tag, but you're actually buying it. And then obviously, there's you're going to be hunting on an outfit with an outfitter, and most of the time, you're going to be on private property. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, I mean, somebody owns the land and they've been given an antelope tag. Landowners get allotted a certain number of tags based on, a survey of the property or the surrounding area by Game and Fish. So they have a set number of tags that they can sell. Although now over there, I think they can sell as many tags as they want if you're a landowner.
Wow.
I think the first thing you do is come up with a budget. So this is what I can spend on this hunt. And if you have the means to do it, that is a sure, you don't have to worry about drawing anything. You know you're going to get a tag. You're going to be hunting private property. It's going to be a guided or semi-guided hunt at least. Maybe there's some, if you look hard enough, you might find an outfitter that does a bit of, I guess you could call it semi-guided or DIY, where they take you to the property and say, okay, here's where I'd go if I were you, and you're off on your own. I think that, that probably depends on the outfitter and the way he runs them. But so once you have your budget in place, obviously if you have the means, that's a really good option. The other options, obviously there's Arizona, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, where you can apply for the draw. And application wise, it's a very simple. I mean, if you use a computer for anything, there's no reason why somebody shouldn't be able to get on any Game and Fish website and go through the process of applying for a tag. Now, you might have some questions about, which hunt do I apply for, so on and so forth. But there's some, like Arizona, there's some kind of frustrating things about the application process. But it's a frustrating deal, but it doesn't make it more difficult necessarily. I think as far as applications goes, New Mexico and Montana are super easy. It's kind of like shopping on Amazon. You just go and click in the boxes that you want, and you pay for it and you're done.
Nice.
Arizona's process is a little bit different. But still, if you ask me, do I need to be on the phone with you while I do this? The answer is no, you don't. This is the hunt you apply for. You find that hunt, you apply for it, and you're done.
I like easy.
Yeah, I like streamline.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about the, DIY, it has to be on public land guy?
I would say, if that's probably Wyoming would be your best bet. Just because the sheer number of antelope, and there's a lot of private property there, but there's a lot of public land in Wyoming as well. Montana is another good option because of the block management. I mean, there's public land, but there's also block management where it's like you sign in to hunt this private property. So that's another good option. And in New Mexico, there's plenty of good public land to hunt them if you can draw a tag. And in Arizona, lots of antelope on public land. But the trouble down here is it's just you got to have a lot of points to draw the tag. There aren't really a lot of antelope tags that are given out in Arizona.
Now, in Washington State, the Department of Fish and Wildlife has a pretty good a little chart for some of the elk areas you can hunt. They have like tracking collars on the elk. They can tell you like this is where they've seen them typically this time of year if you draw a special tag. Do they have anything like that for antelope? Letting people know like these are the areas where they're at or where they're most seen.
Not that I can think of right off the top of my head. What I use, if I'm going to be going on a hunt, for myself anyway, and I've used it, to give prospective clients some feedback as well. Is I like to use Go Hunt.
I was just gonna ask
They
that.
have, yep. So they have the breakdown of the different units and the draw odds and things like that, and that's a really useful tool, and it's a relatively um, simple investment to make every year to have all that information at your fingertips, 365 days a year. Uh, so I use that a lot, for looking for hunts and kind of pointing people in this direction versus that direction.
Kirk, do you know what the cost is for a Go Hunt off the top of your head? What the yearly membership is
I want to say it's like $150
and that's for the year, right?
That's for the year, correct?
But it's like a plethora of information for everything,
right? And
everything.
they kind of right, and they frown upon it. They don't want people sharing, accounts or whatever. But if you get 3 guys and everybody knows the login and the password, they can frown on it as much as they want. But if you get 3 guys and everybody chips in $50, then you've got that information, and it's not like they can, not like they're going to come knock on your door and say, "Hey, are you sharing this with these other 2 guys?" What if I am? It's none of your business, you know. So I've had people ask me, about it. And it's like, look, man, if I understand you don't want to spend $160 for this thing for the whole year, but you can't text me every day, like, "Hey, can you look this up for me?" Like, I don't have time to stop what I'm doing every moment. And so I actually told a guy, I'm like, "Why don't you just get a couple of your buddies, dude, and you guys just chip in together, and then you have the information right there." And, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea," but they don't want you to do that. Who gives a shit what they want?
Yeah.
No, it's a product. It's a product, and it's not like you're sharing underwear with your brother or something. You're just sharing information amongst a group of guys that you most likely hunt with a lot.
Kirk, can you text me your Netflix code?
Yeah. I don't have Netflix. I'll tell you what, though, since Elon Musk bought Twitter, I signed up for that shit.
Yeah.
That's funny. I know a lot of people that were saying that.
Yeah.
Hey, I signed up for Twitter today.
Yeah, I did. I'm not kidding. I did, and I did it because there was a guy I work with that was talking about, wow, this is like really blowing up, and he's a younger guy. He's got all this social media crap, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that is. So he asked me about Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, I don't do Twitter, dude. But he started showing me some of the stuff and like all the things that are going on. I'm like, man, I got to get involved in this, man. I don't want to necessarily get involved, but I just want to hear I want to be able to keep track of the conversation. And
The
it's
buzz.
it's crazy to me that so many people's lives are revolving around the fact that a dude was able to convince a bunch of people to sink a bunch of money into a stupid ass social media platform, and you're letting that control your life and the way you feel. Yeah, it's crazy to me.
What's crazy to me is that someone came up with $44 billion. Like that's a crazy amount of money.
You know what?
That's what he bought Twitter for?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, so that's the other thing. Everybody keeps saying he bought it. He did not buy it.
Well, Morgan Stanley.
He put together a group of people.
So you got a bunch of investors.
And they bought the thing. And the dude he's a very interesting guy. If you haven't listened to him talk or listened to any of his interviews, I would suggest watching the Joe Rogan podcast where he's had him on there twice now.
I've watched both of them.
Yeah, he's a fascinating dude, man. And he is, you can tell he's very thoughtful. He doesn't just make, off the cuff comments. He does, but most of his answers, if when he's being asked questions, he's a very thoughtful guy. And he I love the fact, he's going to screw this up. Well, that's what they told him when he said, I'm going to build an electric car that everybody's going to want to have. They told him he couldn't do it. Then they told him, you're not going to be able to build a space travel vehicle where the rocket can return to Earth and be used again.
100%. 100%.
That's amazing. Well,
yeah,
the first first three of them crashed, So then the fourth one, but they figured it out. That's the amazing part, is to have an idea and follow through in the perspective of other people. You don't even know what's possible because you never try. How many times have you seen something you're like, nah, it's impossible, and then someone else does it. Social media and having so many video cameras everywhere. I saw a guy on a motorcycle going over a bridge, and he just zipped around the car and rear-ended the car in between two cars. He rear-ended a car, and he actually flew off his bike and did a somersault forward, landed on his feet on the roof of that car, and the car came to a stop, and he walked off. Now, he would have told all his buddies, like, dude, you'll never guess what happened on the Golden Gate Bridge. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's bullshit. Well, the dash camera caught it. And so I'm thinking, like, a lot of these miraculous things people have been telling you for years, like, oh, this happened, you're not going to believe it. Actually happened. They just wasn't no cameras around to see it.
Yeah, it could be, man.
It's crazy.
The guy, I just think he's a very interesting person, and he has a lot of ideas and that are really interesting, and it's comical to me that just the things that people let control their daily lives, and I just thought it was kind of funny. So I figured, well, hell, I might as well throw my hat in the ring here and start slinging out some tweets
instead of bugles.
You're
out there tweeting instead of bugling. What's wrong with you, Kirk?
I'm gonna be tweeting from turkey camp next week.
All right.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome. Well, that's a good way to end the show. Next week,
tweeting from turkey camp.
Doesn't get any better than that.
I won't be able to because there's no cell service up there.
Well, Kirk,
but a guy can dream.
There we go. You never know. Well, Kirk, it was awesome having you on again. We always have a good time talking to you, and we'll definitely have you on again.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, good luck at turkey camp. Hope you get a 10-inch beard.
They've been kicking our ass the last couple of weekends, between them and the weather and the wind and the guys that drive past you as you're hiking into a spot. That got Western pretty quick with one of the guys. But it's been pretty tough. It's usually a little better later in the season, so I'm hopeful that this weekend will be better for us. Going over to New Mexico this weekend. Going to be over there till the middle part of the week next week. Come back home for a day, and then go to the ranch in Mexico for 4 days. And hopefully, when I get back, I'll still be married.
Oh my gosh! Now, are you guiding down there?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I want to share a quick turkey fact with you. Since you don't have Netflix and you probably haven't seen the latest season of Meat Eater. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did you see it?
No, I can't watch that show.
Oh, okay. So the beard on a turkey is actually a feather.
It's a feather.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Dave, you look amazed.
No, I'm not. I'm just looking at you like you didn't know.
Like you didn't know that? Am I the only one?
I did know that.
I can't believe you didn't know that, Dave.
Yeah, I knew it.
There's a book. There's a book. I believe the title of the book. So for anybody that is likes turkey hunting, I believe the two books that I would suggest. Number one, I believe it's called like The Natural History of the Wild Turkey, and it talks about their biology, and it talks about how that beard is it's actually a feather. But there's a lot of interesting facts in this book about turkeys. And one of the things that kind of jumped out at me was that they're as far as their like body size goes and their sexual maturity. So a male turkey is fully grown at like 7 to 8 months, and they're sexually mature at 7 to 8 months as well. But obviously, throughout the years, they add feathers, and their spurs get bigger, or their beard gets longer, so on and so forth. But it's not like they're, like a deer or an elk where they're getting a little bit bigger every year. That's not the way it works. So that was kind of interesting. And the other book is called 10th Legion. And if you're a turkey hunter, you got to read 10th Legion, man. It's a fantastic book. It's one of those that you'll read a few times. Very good book.
What was the name of that first book again?
I think it's called The Natural History of the Wild Turkey. I think is the title of that book. But the second one again is 10th Legion.
I'm gonna have to pick
10th
that 10th Legion up.
That talks a little bit. That's more along the lines of the type of person that hunts turkeys, and sort of the dance that happens every spring. And it's just if you're a turkey hunter, it's a cool read for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick that up.
Yeah, that
Dave,
sounds
you get 10th
Yeah.
Legion. I'll get the turkey thing, and then we'll share it.
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah,
We'll
so it'll
swap
be
one
just
then.
like the Go Hunt subscription.
Yeah.
We'll have Barnes and Noble's
Yeah.
knocking on our door. What do you do with these books?
Yeah, well, I don't think any of us will be sponsored by Go Hunt anytime soon. So get 10 guys together and everybody chip in $15.
All right. All right. Well, appreciate it. Have a good night, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you,
Yep.
Kirk.
All right, boys. Yep.
All right.
You guys have a good one.
Yep, have a good night.
Already.
We love having Kirk on the podcast. He's always great. And talking about mule deer and antelope. Just some really good information, and Kirk's one of the guys that we like bringing on to talk about that. But next week, we are going to be talking to an author. The book, The Ultimate Guide to Black Bear Hunting by Douglas Bose. He is going to be on the podcast next week. And we're going to be talking black bear. So
That should be good.
it's going to be good.
I've had some struggles with black bears.
So have I.
Yeah, it's
And
one of those crazy things that I can't get over it. Every time I see one, I just miss it. And I hate having that on me.
well, guess what? You get to pick the brain of an awesome black bear hunter.
Okay, awesome. Yeah,
So
I met,
I'm going to be doing the same thing because for some reason I just can't get them figured out. Can't figure them out.
well, I met a guy. He's a black bear hunter, and he uses these Trigicon scopes with the little fluorescent dot in the middle for the
Mhm.
reticle, and he swore up and down by that because the crosshairs on your scope would get lost in the fur, and people would shoot an area that they didn't know, it wasn't a vital area or as vital area, so the bears would escape. So he swore by using that.
The Trigicon.
Yeah, because you can see your reticle, where
Right.
you're aiming at when you shoot. So never did quite pony up the bucks for that, but dial the scope back a little bit and take a good shot. But I just can't. I don't know if it's the trigger control or there's too much excitement. But I love hunting black bears, and one day I'm going to take one, and hopefully it's the next one I see.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll pick his brain. We'll ask him, from glassing to what elevations, where should we be looking for food sources, all that. And then it'd be good to hear a good story that's not in his book.
Yeah,
about a black bear hunt.
One that got away.
Maybe.
All right.
Talk to everybody next week. Have a good one.
Have a good week.